So, how about this time? I know, long time no see, but I think it's time that I re-upload a video, and I'll probably explain my absence. Actually, I could just do that right now. Busy with work, busy with family life, you know, the whole 9 yards, all this other crap. So, but you don't really care about that. You're here more for this video, so let's talk about my possibly new main Warframe, because this is probably the coolest, funkiest, most interesting Warframe in the game so far. And I think they did a really good job designing her. So, let's start off. This is Octavia's first ability. It is called Mallet, and what this will do, it will throw a hovering invulnerable orb that will draw aggro from any enemy that comes in line of sight of it. But mind you, it depends on who they find first. So if they find this first, they will draw aggro towards this. If they find you first, you know how that works. But when it takes damage, it will take that damage that it's taking and multiply it, and then just kind of put it into the area around it. And it will just keep constantly doing damage based upon the rhythmic action of what you set your Manticore to be. So, in this area, enemies will be aggroed, enemies will be damaged, and this is a line of sight based ability. It is also not one-handed, I should also mention that. One-handed meaning that I cannot reload while this animation is happening, so let's give this a quick justification. So, here actually I'll just use my Vacore hack. So when I'm reloading, it gets interrupted. You'll notice that I have to keep reloading. This is not a one-handed ability. This is a two-handed ability and will interrupt your performing actions, but it will not inhibit jumping at all. Like, you can keep jumping, you can keep moving, you can keep doing everything. You can walk and do this. So it's kind of a two-handed ability, but not really. Anyways, moving on though. That's her first ability, and this does colossal damage. We'll go ahead and show it off real quick. Grab like a heavy gunner, or let's grab 8 of these guys. We'll simulate this. Toss this. They all aggro towards it, and you'll notice that they keep continuously taking damage, and the more damage they pour into it, the more damage I get out of it. And this entire aura is how big the damage radius is. This is blocked off by line of sight, as I've mentioned. You want to definitely be mindful of that. Up next, actually, well, there's not too much to talk about that as of right now. But up next, we have her Resonator, which is basically like a little roller droid, and it's super adorable. One of those rollers that you see in the Grenier things. I think they should reskin this and make it look like something else. But other than that, it's pretty alright. So what this will do is it'll chase after enemies and try to follow them around and charm them into working for you. Also, for some reason that's buggy. Okay, yeah, that works. We'll try to follow enemies and charm them into helping you out. And you're only allowed one Resonator at a time. You'll notice that they're all fixated on grabbing that droid. They're also taking continuous damage. Also, this works in tandem with your first ability and Mallet for your Resonator, because it will grab that, enemies will aggro to it, and they also take amped damage off of it. And it will go around trying to seek enemies and make them follow it and bother the crap out of them. But personally, I don't like that. It's whatever. And the more this wanders around, the better it does, and it also increases your... Oh, no, it doesn't. It just basically takes every enemy that's within its aura and effectively amplifies the damage based off of how many enemies are inside of it, whether or not they are shooting at the object itself. So here, let's go ahead and show this off. I don't know how my Resonator got down there. So, I'll take this. So we'll pick it up. They'll drag it over to them. Notice they're not shooting and they're all charmed by it. They take continuous damage. Again, line of sight. Enemies do take quite a bit of damage from this. And it's a pretty interesting ability. I personally don't like it, but it's adorable. And it's really cool looking. And it kind of tries to follow you around as much as it can, but at the time when enemies come around, it doesn't fuck around. So, yeah, there's that. Next, though, we have Metronome. And what this ability does is a plethora of different things. And to get into it, let's talk about some easy stuff. So when you cast it, you'll notice that all these rings form around me. I'll show my Manticore after this, so you can see what I did. But what this does is that it will give you buffs applied directly from what kind of metronome, or what you're doing to the metronome itself. So when these rings hit you, you can perform a specific action, and you'll see at the top right, I just gained myself a stack of Nocturne, or a percentage of it. So the more I perform that action, I get that action's buff. So Nocturne is rhythmic crouching, and it'll give me invisibility for the base the duration that you have. So with this build that I'm using, I get 42 seconds of invisibility, and this is really good because then I can move around as fast as I want. I can shoot during this and just, keep my stacks and shit. And it even keeps going after the buff has worn off. You'll still see at the top right, I got my duration. Got the ability isn't cast anymore. I'm still able to rock around. I'm able to do everything, and that's pretty nice and dandy. Next, we have Vivance, or Vivance. Anyways, it gives you a buff specifically for jumping, rhythmic jumping, mind you, and you get movement speed. And a pretty sprightly movement speed, I might say, and it's pretty nice. But other than that, it's not really anything to write home about. You just get increased movement speed, and it's, well, I wouldn't say it's not anything to write home about, but it's still pretty good. And I like it a lot. Next is rhythmic meleeing. So you get Forte, or Fort, or however you want to pronounce it. This will increase your melee damage, multiplied up to a pretty sturdy amount. And right now I have 55% extra melee damage, which is pretty substantial. And when you also do rhythmic shooting, you'll notice you'll get stacks of this thing called Opera. It's kind of hard for me to pull off because I can't really... There we go. So you get 55% extra multi-shot. So instead of shooting 3 bullets on this weapon, I'm shooting 4, which is pretty insane. And that it changes your DPS entirely and completely, and it's fucking phenomenal. And last but not least, I should mention that this also, at the top right, you can see during the duration, when friendlies and yourself are inside of this, you get an armor buff. And right now I'm getting 64% extra armor, which is pretty fucking good. So it makes the tanks even tankier and makes the squishies survive a little bit more. And I should also mention that allies, not just yourself, can accomplish all of this. You all can do rhythmic crouching to get Nocturne and make yourself all invisible. So you don't need a Loki for invisibility, or you don't need an Ivara for invisibility. But mind you, if you need a target, a specific target, like say a rescue target or a defense sortie target, you'll need Ivara for that, because obviously they don't crouch to the rhythm. Anyways, that is a huge ability, and it has a lot of things going for it. I know. It's a pretty damn good one at that. So the last ability is called Amp. What this does is it creates an aura, or a dance floor in this regard, of basically just a whole bunch of increased damage for your team. So you see at the top right, I have like this target board. Here, let me try to get it over this. You'll have a target board up at the top right that looks like that, and it's got 46% in it, which is pretty eh. That's how much damage I'm getting out of this. But the louder the dance floor is, the more damage I get. You see 368% extra damage So I'm literally multiplying my own damage by that much. 3, and this goes for allies as well. And this is a phenomenal and substantial ability. Just dead increasing your weapon and multiplying it by 3, or even 4, or even 5, depending on how much power strength you have. And this also scales with range as well. So you can make the dance floor even bigger. It's pretty fucking nice. I know, who would have thought? And noise level is increased by you walking around. As you can see, it's kind of sensitive, and so I'm already at like 200. Sometimes I personally think it's kind of buggy, or I just don't know how it works, but sometimes it amplifies and sometimes it goes down when you step on something. I'm not sure. But regardless, it's a great ability. It's the noise is also caused by gunfire, enemy gunfire, meleeing, footsteps, etc. The noisier the room is, essentially, the more action-filled. Amp also does a couple of other things. Amp also takes your mallet's range and doubles it. So let's go ahead and show that off. This is my, or did I say mallet? Yeah. Mallet, this is my mallet, and this is the range that it normally has. And then I will take my amp and double that range. So I just effectively doubled my range, and it also doubles that damage. This amp also increases and doubles damage and range for every other mallet that's thrown in here, including your teammates. Even if you're just throwing another one in there, it's always going to have that. Teammate throws one in there, same thing. It doubles the range and the damage. So, that's pretty fucking nice. She's got a lot of buffs going for her, a lot of things going for her, a lot of million other things that she can just accomplish just on her own, and it's kind of fucking nice. It's a really weird way to buff teammates and kind of support your team in a way, in a very awkward fashion. She's got amazing scalability and a whole bunch of other things going for her as well. And also, the more abilities you have going at once, the better. You'll notice that my mallet doing like this rhythmic bounce. Then I turn on metronome, and you also see that it starts freaking the fuck out. I put my ball droid on that, and it's getting even wackier. So, the more things we have going at once, the better. Because her passive also, well, she has her own passive of the longer, or for however many seconds your abilities stay up, the more energy per second you get. So, if you have an ability going, you're getting energy because it's going. So, you build for duration because efficiency hardly matters with this Warframe. I wouldn't say it completely, like, doesn't matter at all, but it hardly matters because you make it so much faster back. Like, I can turn on Zeneric and then pop 4, my 1, my 2, and my 3 all at once, and I'm just making all this energy that I lost back in a super quick fashion. So that's a pretty nice set of abilities that she's got going for her. Other than the fact that she's kind of squishy, it's kind of a little bit hard to live off of her abilities, but we can make do. But this is kind of my build. I personally focus on trying to give as much damage and in an area as possible. You can swap out Constitution for whatever you want. Like, here, let's see. Any other dash polarities I can throw in there? You could probably throw a streamline in there if you're feeling uncomfortable with how much there is, or a natural talent if you just don't like the casting speed, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's literally almost instantaneous. Or toxic flight, or, you know, something. This is kind of just whatever you want, honestly. I personally prefer the added duration, but it's all hit or miss with the rest of you. So, yeah, that's kind of her ability set, and let's see her in action. Let's take these enemies off, put on some dangerous ones. Crank them up to 80. So, before we start this fight, I can buff up. Do this. Do that. Then go to town. Yeah, I'm done. That's Octavia. You know what? Let's increase the consequences. There's that way. Enemies don't get distracted. Let's just increase this just a lot. How about that? That sounds reasonable, right? And be mindful of your surroundings as well, because you will get caught in the crossfire more often than not. See how they're just chipping away at their own health? This ability does, sadly, however, get affected by armor scaling. And I mean that it gets negatively affected by the armor scaling, because armor scaling in this game is ridiculous and it should probably be touched up, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, this Warframe is fucking phenomenal, and I can't wait to see more of what this Warframe can do. There's nothing I love more in this game than abilities that can work in tandem and abilities that are good on their own. Like Mallet being a crowd control device that kind of, well, I mean crowd control with a very heavy emphasis on quotations on that, but crowd control because it draws aggro and it also kills a whole bunch of enemies in that line of sight. Pretty fucking good. Resonators. Cute. Metronome, doing multiple buffs and being able to team buff at the same time. An amp, being able to straight up amplify your damage by a significant percentage, also doubling the effectiveness of all your other abilities. Is just crazy. So, yeah, that's pretty much what this Warframe's good for. Let's go ahead and I'll show off my Manticore real quick. This is what I got cooking. So, I have a whole bunch of metronomes down here because this makes it easier to just rapidly hit the crouch button and just spam it to death. I have a really interesting cadence on the mallet. It's pretty much every fourth beat, and that kind of gives it an extra damage boost. You can have it once every eighth tick if you really want to, but I prefer not to. And Resonator, honestly, doesn't really matter. You can have whatever you want, really, whatever you're comfortable with. This is just, it suits me because it's just easier to work with. When in the heat of things, all I have to do is just rapidly crouch, or rapidly shoot, or rapidly melee, etc, etc, etc. And it's hard to fucking fail. But, yeah. That's my Octavia. And I'll show off the other builds real quick. Yeah, you've probably already seen this. You can replace this with a contagious spread or what have you. It doesn't really matter, but anything can really fit there. Your preference in elemental. My Pandero. You can replace this with any elemental or a sharpened bullets. Let's see where that is. Yeah, you can replace this with sharpened bullets or any elemental that you really want to. It honestly doesn't matter. But sharpened bullets because crit damage is pretty fucking nice on this thing. Yeah. Legion. And I will be getting myself a Riven mod for this bad boy. Because this weapon's cast strong. so that shouldn't be jagged edge. I might need to format this one more time so that way I can put buzzkill. Oh well. Either way, as it stands, this is kind of what I do. This is kind of what I use, and Octavia is quickly becoming my favorite. I just wish she had a different helmet. Off Tenogen, please. Anyways, without further ado, insert outro here.